Quick tips about how to use the LEICA Q2. First off, let's get this battery charged and out of here. To remove the battery, pull the lever, and it's not going to come out. It's got a safety catch. Push it in just a little bit, and then it comes the rest of the way out. You see how this is designed here. To put it back in, simply slam it home. You can do this without even looking at the battery. Just feel for the slot and slam the sucker in here, and you can swap battery magazines while you're running without even looking at them. The charger, it only charges externally. There's no USB input to the camera. Here's your charger. You have to plug it in the wall with a standard unpolarized plug. It only goes in one way. There you go. It's ready to go. This charge light will blink while it's charging. When it comes up to 80% charge, this 80% light will come on steady while the charge light continues to blink. That means you're at least 80%. And then when you're completely charged, both lights go steady. The reason you want to know that you're at 80% is if you only charge the battery about 80% each time, you might have some more charge cycles you get out of the battery long term. That's the way lithium ions like to work. It takes just about as long to get from 80 to 100% as it does to get from 0 to 80. So if you're in a rush, once you hit 80, you are good to go. You can go out and shoot whatever you need to shoot and not worry. For straps, I don't use the wimpy little leather thing that came in. I use the same LEICA strap. These cost about $50, and there's a link for it in my description. The key is this one I have here is about 12 or 15 years old, still looks brand new. To get this strap on, instead of fussing around and breaking things, all you have to do to get this on is simply poke it through the hole, flip it around like this. It's a stainless steel, and it's solid. And then you just slide this little lock clip down over it. And you're done. Your strap's on. You don't need any protectors. It's got protectors like that built in, and you are good to go. And to get it off, all you got to do is just flip it around, and it's off. Simple as that. Super easy. So, again, I use these straps. These straps never wear out. This is a made in Germany strap. It's not something you're going to throw away. So that's a lifetime investment. For power management, I just leave the LEICA on all the time. It goes to sleep when it's not in use or when you just put it down, and when you wake it back up, it comes right back up, so I don't even bother turning the power off unless I was putting it away in a bag and something might squeeze this. But LEICAs aren't made to be put away in bags. They're made to be kept and just live with you all day and all night. Film styles. Well, there's no film involved. It's just the way they call their picture control. Just press menu a couple times, and it's right up here in the top menu. Film style, fairly simple. Standard, leave it on that. Vivid is what I prefer for vivid colors. Natural is plain. Monochrome and monochrome high contrast, another word for black and white. To set them, go to film style settings, and then you can choose what you want. I shoot in vivid, set the sharpness all the way up. It's a subtle adjustment. I don't see much difference in the sharpening. And I set the saturation all the way up. And it doesn't get that vivid, so I'm not that much a fan of it. For black and white, sadly, it doesn't have the options to simulate an orange or red or other kind of contrast filters, but hey, too bad. For auto ISOs, I always shoot in auto ISO. I find that I always get sharp results, and it's always good compromise to have 1/15 as the minimum shutter speed. Your technique may be different. Maximum ISO, actually, 50,000 looks pretty bad, so maybe you'd want to set 25,000. It's your choice. The question is, do you want a picture that's blurry from motion or blurry from crappy high ISO being too high? What's interesting about the minimum shutter speeds is you have your choice of the regular speeds, 1/f, 2f, 3f, 4f. So in other words, 1/28, 1/56. The key is when you use this synthetically synthesized lenses, these will do different things. Personally, regardless of how you synthesize the lens, I still want the same speed. But again, you've got all the options, and here's where you set them. For macro, it's really simple. It's so simple, those who are used to using cameras from the Orient probably wouldn't even look for it. It's simply a macro adjustment right here. Did you see that focus scale change? Watch that. That's a beautiful thing. Just do that. Know that when you're in the macro mode, it can't focus to infinity. So if you try to take a picture at a normal distance, it's not going to focus, and you'll probably be flustered saying, oh my gosh, I can't take this picture of my friends. It's not focusing. I look like an idiot. Well, it won't warn you, but you should know. Be sure to put it back to the regular mode. For focusing, it's always an auto. Well, leave it in autofocus. To unlock it, to get manual, there's this very invisible catch here. You have to push that in. When you push this in, you unlock it, and then you can turn it for manual focus. And manual focus is just that. It's got a real manual focus ring, as it should be. And to get it back into autofocus, you have to push this push that little guy in so you can rotate it. Exposure modes. Leave these both at A, you get program. If you want to set a set aperture, just set the aperture ring. That's aperture priority. If you want to set a fixed shutter speed, just set the shutter speed, and it'll vary the aperture automatically. If you want full manual, how simple could it be? You don't need an exposure mode selection knob or button. The self-timer is usually buried in the menu, although depending on how you have your camera set, oftentimes you hit FN, you'll get an option for the self-timer. For scene modes, If you want the flower, pet, night scene, and so forth, I don't think anybody with a Leica would actually do this, but if you wake up your camera, hit menu, go to page 2, and what they carefully call scene mode, please, PASM, or you can have your various portrait, landscape, night portrait, fireworks, candlelight, so forth. If you've got a Leica, I wouldn't use those. But the beauty of it is, because Leica is more about the lifestyle than the picture, you can actually use these silly modes, and no one will know you're doing it, and you still look cool with your Leica. Autofocus and auto exposure locks. You notice there's no separate button for that. The way the camera comes set by default is when you press the shutter halfway, exposure and focus lock, and you can change the way those work in the menus. For exposure compensation, usually just turning this dial will get you that, depending on how you have your camera set. Sometimes when you change this, like when it's set here to program mode, you'll actually be shifting the program exposure. So if I want to set the compensation when I'm in program mode, I boof over here to aperture preferred, change the exposure compensation, then go back into program mode. And again, these will vary depending on how you have your camera set. I like my shutter to be always the leaf shutter so I can use flash with it, and it only goes to electronic shutter above a 2,000th of a second. To change that, if you go into menu, page 2, and then electronic shutter here at the bottom, I leave it in extended. That means it's always using leaf shutter unless it needs to use the electronic shutter at an ultra high speed, or you can force it on or force it off. The crop modes. So easy to use, it's not even marked. This unmarked button right here, again, you can program these to some extent, but the way the camera comes out of the box, pushing this gets you full frame, 28 millimeters, 35 millimeter crop, 50 millimeter crop, 75 millimeter crop. And it just, as you push it, it keeps going to the next ones. When you play back, it'll be zoomed in, but when you're shooting, it gives you the full frame and just the crop mark. If you shoot RAW, the RAW image will have the entire image. The RAW isn't cropped, but the JPEG is. If you want to set the level, the histogram, the grids, and the flashing highlights, you set these at menu page 3. And they're called capture assistants. You get your grid, clipping, highlights, horizon for the level, and your histograms. It does not have a color histogram, only a black and white histogram. And the manual cautions that it's not even necessarily accurate, which is really too bad. For flash, by default, only turns on the flash when it thinks it's dark enough and you need flash. Not exactly the way a photographer would do it. But if you go to menu, page 3, you get to these different pages by pressing menu repeatedly. Go to flash settings, and I set it so flash mode is always on. If you leave it at auto, which is the way it comes from Wetzlar, it only turns on when it thinks it's too dark, and you wouldn't be able to use fill flash. So set that on, always leave it on, and this way you control if your flash shoots or not by the switch on the back of the flash. There really is no remote control for this camera. If you want to futz with an app, I'm a Leica owner. I don't use apps. I just shoot. The owner's manual cautions that if you use the app and use your remote control system, you can control the camera even when it's turned off, which means you can make the camera take pictures even when you think it's off remotely. Any of your friends who paired their phones by Bluetooth to your camera can now take pictures of you when they're in Bluetooth range, even if your camera's turned off. So know that. Profiles. A nifty thing about this camera is you can save complete sets of user settings under user profile. And you notice I have one for Ken Rockwell, which is my usual shots, and one for use on a tripod, which is where I lock everything down to ISO 100 and turn off the stabilization. You can save 6 of those. You can also save those to a card under Manage Profiles. You see, if you export them, you can export them to a card and reload them from a card. Please turn off the beeps and the fake shutter sounds. I'm not sure why that's on a Leica. I'm not sure. Well, I bet you Panasonic designed this. To turn those off, it's menu page 4. Called acoustic signal. Turn it all off here. The top right dial will zoom in when you're on doing playback. Tap this button. You'll also get a zoom. And to swap among the information modes, tap that rear button. Notice the screen is 1.5 to 1. So if you tap to get the information along the top and the bottom, you're losing the top and the bottom of your images as displayed here. But if you look at it through the Finder is a 4:3 aspect ratio, so it's a little taller, so you can get the data and not lose your image. This is a Leica. All the images made on this camera are flawless masterpieces. There is no delete button. If you really want to delete something, if you're really that bad a photographer, you can press the FN button, usually on playback, and get the options to delete, depending on how you have your camera set. Caps, hoods, and filters. The camera comes with this beautiful metal cap on this beautiful metal hood. Well, that looks great, and the Leica image, it talks about how you look with the camera around your neck. It's not the pictures it makes. This hood doesn't really do much. You'll notice it has an incredibly large angle of acceptance, so it doesn't do much other than to keep your fingers off the lens and try to make the camera look cooler. So I didn't use this hood. This beautiful all-metal alloy hood. I take it off, never use it again. Inside the box is this thing, Leica calls it a thread protection ring. I just call it a trim ring. You see, what that does is it covers up there's male threads here, which are not very beautiful to look at. So put that on there. And I always run my Q2 with a filter. You can use whatever filter you want, but there's no need to go cheap on filters because filters outlast your cameras. This is a Hoya. This was an HD2. Get the HD3 or any of these. These are made of bulletproof glass. They don't break. They're thumbprint proof. They're pretty much bulletproof. The key is I always run this on the front of my camera. Now, I just throw this in my bag this way, and it doesn't matter. It's not going to break. I don't need to use a cap, and I can always shoot through this. So I shoot with the trim ring and a filter. You can do what you want. In fact, maybe a lot of people, typical person that buys a Leica usually is a bit squeamish. The immortals are not, but the people who buy them tend to be coming from other professions who just do well. So let's see. You can certainly leave the filter on and shoot it that way. And if you're really squeamish, which you shouldn't be with a Leicas are meant to be used and abused. And if you wear it out, get another one. You could do this. But I don't like using caps because this cap means you just lost your picture. I don't like ever having a cap on my camera. I guess it comes from working at a newspaper. You'd never use a lens cap because that's the best way to get no picture. So leave the cap off, use a filter on it to protect it, and that's it. That's a little bit about how to use the Leica Q2. I hope these tips have helped you. And again, thanks for watching Ken Rockwell and KenRockwell.com.